Okay, so I duplicated the lights around and I finally decide which HDR I'm going to use, but we have a few issues we need to fix with this overall light. So I'm going to do a quick test render so you can see what I mean. Okay, so there we have it. First of all, our HDR is way too dark. It doesn't look realistic at all. You need to pay attention to the fact that we are not going to use this actual HDR as our final image result. We are going to change this background in a post-production, but if we have this HDR the way it looks right now, we obviously have a problem with the lighting that this HDR is providing. So we need to change this. The other thing we have is a very strong yellowish outside sun color. The reason for that is that we have a very low sun position, and we can fix this in one of two ways. Way number one, we can make the HDR stronger than the actual sunlight so that this yellow won't be so apparent, or we can switch the sun upwards so that it won't have this yellowish sunset tone. Either way you choose is fine. There's a third way, which is change this color mode to override, which I don't recommend because it's not very realistic. We want a filter color, but we want this to blend in with the actual sun. I don't want to raise my sun because I really like the way that my shadows are right now, so I'm going to leave it as it is, and I'm just going to decrease this influence and increase the influence of the HDR. So let's do that. So I'm going to decrease the intensity multiplier quite a bit. I don't want the sun to be expressive at all. I just want the shadows and the overall yellowish tint as a really subtle background. So I'm going to switch this to 0.5, a very low value. And I'm going to open the material editor, and I'm going to increase my overall multiplier to this HDR quite a bit as well. Let's try 5 and do a quick test render to see how this looks now. There you go. So this looks way better than before. I'm very happy with this result. I'm just going to increase the overall multiplier a little bit more, just something like 7. And I'm going to try to increase the intensity of the sun to 0.8. And I'm going to decrease the size multiplier to 6 because I'm starting to feel like the shadows are kind of disappearing too much. And test render. All right, so I'm very happy with the way this light is right now. As you can see, I already did all the lighting in the interiors of our scene, and now we're ready to create our first IES light. So the IES file is a file that contains all the information of a specific light bulb that exists in the real world. So this file contains intensity information, it contains color information, and it contains shape information. So we can have a very realistic, good-looking light into our scene that actually exists in the real world. Now, although we have all this information plugged in the file, we're still going to have control over most of these parameters after we plug this in to max. So let's go ahead and create our first IES light. In V-Ray, we have to create a specific light, which is the V-Ray IES. So I'm going to switch this to another view and go over to a front view like so. And I'm just going to create this light here. There you go. And I'm going to switch this to perspective. Just move this over like this. And we have the light in place. Now all we have to do is plug our file. So I'm going to switch to the modify panel, select only the light itself, and in here we have the option to choose the IES file. So as you can see, we have a lot of different lights here, and like I said, if you never used them before, just use IES Viewer to choose your own light. Right now I'm going to choose this one and click on open. And we have all these parameters here first to work with. I'm going to change the color mode to temperature and just lower this temperature quite a bit. We want a very warm color. Also, we're going to increase this power quite a bit as well. So I'm just going to add an extra 0 here first to test this. And then I'm going to switch cameras and test render. All right, as you can see, it looks good. Probably too warm, but it looks very good. So I'm just going to increase this temperature a bit. And let's increase this power even more. Let's try something like 900. Looking good, but still not good enough for me. So I'm going to change this to 15. Test render again. All right, looking good. So just change a little bit, play with a few IES files, play with a few intensity and colors, and try to get to a point where you're happy with the end result. Also, make sure that the light is not too close to the wall because we don't want this to be blown out. So I'm just going to select this and move this over a little bit. And then you can duplicate this around and duplicate this to the other places. So I'm just going to duplicate this as an instance because I want this to be exactly the same. I'm just going to rotate this 180 degrees, move down, duplicate this over, and I'm duplicating this as a copy because I want this to be different right here, the ones on the garage, but you can do everything the same if you like. So just move this over and try to get to an interesting point. And then I'm going to change the IES file. And I'm going to try to increase this intensity quite a bit. An extra 0. Change the temperature. Then duplicate this over. And then this we want to be an instance. Okay, so once we've got that, we can zoom out and test render. All right, so this is the result we've got so far. Just mix and match this, make sure it looks like you want it to look. And in our next clip, we're going to move on to the other lights in our scene. So see you guys then.